De Goey boots a ball on the siren. George De Goey scores. There's a bit going on here. They're coming from everywhere. There's a siren. Collingwood goes through to the prelim final.
It's a sad way to go out, isn't it, with a losing final.
And they're on their way to Perth.
Talking footy.
Very good evening. Welcome to Talking Footy. The prelim finals are locked and loaded. We could not be more pumped here at Talking Footy for the next 2 weeks coming up. Our full team ready to go. The award-winning journalist from The Age, Sam McClure.
Evening to you, Das. It's not that often that the man to my right gets really fired up about an issue, but he is tonight, and he thinks there should be a rule change this week, Duck.
Welcome to the King, Wayne Carey.
Das.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that in a moment. The man who won a Coleman medal, Brian Taylor. Lots to look forward to tonight.
There is. Melbourne have won 8 out of their past 10 games. Nathan Jones is coming in to speak with us tonight. Look forward to having a chat with him shortly.
Premiership winning All-Australian Hawk is Campbell Brown, and Brownie's ready to go as well. We're going to go straight to Tom Brown. Get involved in our show at 7AFL on Twitter and on the 7AFL Facebook page. Tom Brown, what's happening tonight?
Thanks, Dar. Some big news items, including a boost for next year's fixture. I'll explain that. Why Darcy Moore presents a massive risk this week for the Pies, and has Carlton's quest for Mitch McGovern hit a potential roadblock? All that and more coming up shortly.
We'll come back to you shortly, Tom. Friday night already sold out, maybe 100,000 for the prelim final. Incredible. Last time these two sides met was the 1980 grand final.
Pies noses in front by 4 points. Richmond through Higgins. They'll get back in front. Have a look at this man. They love him at Tigerland.
That's another kick.
Oh, wow. Higgins gets 2 goals in 40 seconds.
High ball. Now Talor with a marvellous pick-up off his toes. Runs within 55. Talor goals. He's got it. Rewalk, great handball. Castagna left foot snap to finish. How about that party trick from Jack? Tigers by 43.
Here's the Collingwood happen. Exactly the same thing.
History will repeat itself. Oh, that's embarrassing for Collingwood. But brilliant from the Tigers. It was on a knife's edge. Higgins.
He did it.
He's had the big through there. They're scouting again, Brown. Here's Thomas for number 4. Oh, you're going to be judging. One-on-one. Good luck, Greenwood. Good luck with your projects. Here's our favourite man. So the Tigers keep the run going. Overwhelming favourites for the flag now. There's your siren. Collingwood goes through to the prelim final.
If you're Gillon McLaughlin and the team at the AFL, you couldn't write a better script, Campbell Brown. Friday night is going to be one for the ages.
Yeah, it certainly will be. If they had have written the script, it would have been in the fiction section, I think, because none of us would have believed it. But the Pies were terrific. They would have been ruining their missed opportunities in the first quarter had they gone on to lose that game, because they were dominant, 20 inside 50s for just 3 goals, 6, but they
I'm
held on.
staggered what a bit of the old suburban warfare can do to crowd numbers. Like, I think that was 390,000 crowds in a row.
Yep.
That's just incredible.
And maybe 100 this Friday night, BT.
I mean, the GWS won in between all those, but it's just incredible.
Let me ask you, BT, you played for both these clubs. You know it better than anyone else, and you know what it was like to leave and go from one club to the next, and the animosity and the hatred. Do you get a sense that this is as big as it's ever been?
Look, absolutely I do. For players, it doesn't mean a lot. It's just a game, and it's a big game, and they're going to enjoy it. But for the supporters, it's all about what it used to be. I mean, these suburbs abut each other, Richmond and Collingwood. I mean, it was suburban warfare in the old days. I mean, you couldn't go into one suburb without being, you know, a bit of a funny look at you if you went into territory where you shouldn't have go. I mean, and just all the older players around both of those clubs that I've met over the years just hated each other with a great passion. You know, since then it's probably become more a supporter-driven thing than it has a player-driven thing. But it's two big clubs playing great footy.
I think as players, though, you do have clubs that you dislike more than other clubs, and it usually revolves around their supporters. So if they're big supporter bases, I mean, when you played, Brown, and you're playing against big clubs, Collingwood, obviously, you got booed and you got hissed at and you got everything else. And when you went to Vic Park, you got more than all of that. You got fluid thrown on you, all sorts of stuff. So you actually start to dislike the supporters, and that's what players.
And it's all generated from probably the 70s, where both of these sides played in a lot of grand finals in the 70s.
Hey, Sam, wouldn't be prelim final week without a injury scare.
Yes.
And Dusty Martin, for whatever reason, is in the sights this week. Is he going to play?
He's going to play. Richmond have confirmed that today. But the drama dust did reach fever pitch, didn't it? Not only across the weekend, but again today. BT, this is training vision from today. So he didn't train with the main group. This is off the back of on Saturday they had some match simulation, and he didn't take part in that. He's clearly a little bit sore, Dust, but Richmond absolutely adamant that he was going to play.
Well, as you said, the Tigers saw fit to roll Neil Barm out today, and as usual, Barmy hasn't missed anyone. Have a listen to this.
I don't know how many times we have to say there's nothing wrong with him and he'll play. Now, I just don't get it. I don't get why you keep asking us the same question and getting the same answer. What if I say, no, he's probably not going to get there? Is that everyone happy? They go home? He's fine. I can guarantee you he's fine. Oh, well, David King, he's got someone to whom he answers that says, you must get a story. I don't care whether you make it up. You've got to get a story, because he pulled it from out of somewhere that I can't mention on this time slot.
Nathan Broad was on flight duties early.
Oh, well, he has got a genuine... No, I'm only kidding. He's fine as well.
And Butler, he looks like he's turned a bit of a...
Yeah, and he's the one, obviously, he's having a go and training. He'll more than likely be close to available to play, I would think, but it's probably going to be a bit hard for you to push into the team unless one of these blokes that you want to be injured are actually injured.
Absolutely classic Barmy in the end, wasn't it? Denying it. I mean, it must be said that David King said it on radio today that the knee injury was a little bit more serious than other people were letting on, but Kingy still said he'd play. So I think everyone's right. He's probably a bit sore, but Brownie, you would know. I mean, most players this time of the year are sore. There's very few that are 100%.
Yeah, you're right. There'll be very few that aren't carrying some form of niggle, and you fight pretty hard this time of year in your rehab and your recovery to get up each week. But I wouldn't think there's any chance.
How do you have a serious knee injury and still play, though?
Well, serious might have been the wrong word. I think what Kingy was saying was that it was more serious than what people were letting on. Well, he didn't say that he wasn't going to play.
I think the media are so thirsty for any little story that it's just the old dart thrower and something will stick and will make something.
I think
clearly in the middle of it.
I think half of that is right, BT. I think that the thirst at the moment has created
an insatiable thirst.
It is well said, but that doesn't mean that Kingy's throwing darts. No, he doesn't do that.
If he's trained all year and then all of a sudden he had a break a couple of weeks ago, then another break, and he's not training, then clearly something is a little more than usual. Yeah. Because he doesn't miss training sessions and he's had a pretty big break. So therefore it has to.
You don't believe Barmy?
No, I didn't. I said,
that's what you said.
Therefore, it has to be a little more serious than what it normally would be, because otherwise he would be training.
Oh, so it is a serious knee injury.
That's not what Wayne said. The counter punch is on tonight, Doug.
No, that's what you're saying. Don't turn your head in disgust. Front me.
Hey, Doug, let me jump in. Round 6 and round 19, these two sides met. You've had a look at both games. Tigers won them both, but the Pies had their chances.
Absolutely. They were both arm wrestles, weren't they? And Collingwood were in both games right up to their necks, and it wasn't until the last quarter, and you look at this vision here, Collingwood had plenty of time. They went inside 50 a number of times, just rushed it. And the one thing you can't do, they had no composure. Nankervis there, you can see there, Stevenson. Nankervis, actually, in this last quarter, I reckon, took 3 marks. Then you see this one here, Phillips. I mean, look at that, slips, look at the score at that point. I mean, that keeps Collingwood in it. And then you go to round 16 when they played again, as we're just looking at a bit more vision from the earlier game. Stevenson just misses that one. So the game could have been a lot closer. That game then blew out. This one here in round 16, look at this kick here. That just drops short to Stevenson. If he goes back, BT, and kicks that, all of a sudden a little bit more scoreboard pressure gets put on the Tigers. So they had a few important moments in both of those games early in the last quarter and just weren't able to capitalise. So just feel if they can make the most of their chances, they will be right in this game.
Prelim final weekend, Brownie, you've been there before, is often the one that causes sides troubles. We've seen red-hot favourites go in and just scrape home. I was fascinated going back and looking at the Hawks. That triple premiership year, they nearly got rolled in all prelim finals.
Yeah, well, there's a food of thought that they're harder to win than the actual grand final, and you're right. I mean, they went on to win 3 flags in a row, but they could have quite easily been bundled out on all 3 of those occasions. They're very, very hard to win preliminary finals.
Why is it like that? Duck, can you give us any sort of insight why prelims are such a strange sort of game for players?
Yeah, and a lot of favourites get beaten in prelims as well. So, look, there's a pressure to go into the grand final, clearly, and I think the team that goes in as red-hot favourites feels that pressure because they're expected to win and go into a granny, and I think that pressure builds. And then, obviously, if you're the underdog, a lot of those teams go in and say, well, we've got nothing to lose here. I mean, obviously you've got a spot in the grand final to lose, but it just seems that the underdog goes in a little freer than the red-hot favourite, and I think that's why you get a lot of really close games.
We'll have a look at a couple of the key matchups. Dusty Martin, who we know will play. Levi Greenwood took him last time. What did we think of that?
Yeah, it didn't work last time.
No, he did. He actually, through the midfield, he did a really good job.
It was when he went forward.
When he went forward. So if they do that again, Dusty goes forward, I think they'll mix that up. They'll have a defender.
So when Dusty does go forward, what's the matchup? Is it going to be a Goldsack type?
Well, Goldsack, Maynard, someone that traditionally plays down there and really strong in the body because Dusty just outbodies him.
And so De Goey, what do you think there? I mean, he was prominent again the other night.
Yeah, he was.
And he was really presenting up in that lead-up fashion, wasn't he?
BT, he could park it. His understanding of when to lead as a full forward, the timing is perfect, and he's a burst player. He's super quick. What he's going to come up against the Richmond though, Grimes is super quick, and they've got other players down there that zone off and set up really nicely. So they have got 2 or 3 that could possibly match up on him. Even Rance will take him. If he's the deepest forward, then he'll have Alex Rance. That's a whole different ball game.
I really like the Grimes matchup though, because like you said, he's got the leg speed, the closing speed that he can get there and spoil it. Because De Goey does like to take a lot of those marks on his chest and not right out in front.
Well, because he's so far in front, he can take them on his chest.
I want to talk about the mystery BT of Darcy Moore at the moment. They are desperate for another key player who could play defence and play forward. He has injured his hamstring going back about 5 weeks now, and we saw this incident. It was up there doing this game at half-time, and we searched the tape. We couldn't see anything significant. Look, he ran off the ground as well as anyone I've ever seen with an injury, Darcy Moore, so we're not suggesting anything.
And this is recent?
This is at training this week, and all the track watchers tell me they've seen him move particularly well. The scans show nothing, but Darcy Moore not available, hasn't played since. So would you risk him into a final this week? He's the sort of player, I mean, you'd just love to have for the flexibility of the offers, but is it too far gone now?
The simple answer is no. I mean, you saw in that game there, and it's a really good point. I mean, you saw Buddy Franklin have 5 or 10 metres on him, and he clearly felt something, not suggesting that he didn't feel anything, but then the fact that he then just runs off as if, there was nothing wrong.
Even if it's a horses for courses thing, Colin would think the matchup would be better suited to Darcy Moore or someone else that hasn't played. You still don't think
take the risk. You cannot take the risk of him, coming off the ground in the preliminary final
so
early.
You think there's something perhaps in his mind that, because if the scans are clear, the medicos are saying you're OK, he sprints off the ground, are you saying...
I've got no idea. There's only one man that can answer that.
He hasn't been past...
That's Darcy.
He hasn't been past fit to play yet. So they've still... So in order to actually even consider him for selection, BT, he's got to be past fit first. It's an intriguing one, Darcy.
But the medical insiders are basically saying that they haven't been able to find anything on the scans.
That's what I was going to say. Are you sure that there's nothing at all found on the scans?
We might ask Tom that when we cross to him in a moment. My understanding is that there hasn't been anything this. I think Darcy said that. It's not a significant injury, but sometimes players just can't get it right. It's not the... I mean, Ben Reid, I want to speak about him for a while. He's had a long history of soft tissue injuries as well. He was surprisingly named an emergency Sam last week. Hasn't played since round 10. Is he a chance?
Well, I mean, he's been training as well as Moore has been recently as well.
That's yesterday.
So you'd think that he'd have to be, in line for selection or even a consideration. It comes back, I guess, a little bit, Brownie and BT, to whether you change a winning form who goes out.
The reason they like him so much is the ability to swing either end of the ground.
Which they can do with Moore.
Yeah, they can, but he's probably more reliable, been there before, got the runs on the board in finals. If you're going to make a move, you're going to make a move.
So I agree. I would take a chance on Reid.
Before Moore.
Most certainly. Tell you what he has been doing. He's been living in the gym. He looks like he's put on 3 or 4 kilos.
He did try and make a comeback in round 19 of the VFL season. It's only 5 weeks ago. Got through the first half, then an explosive effort. Felt for the calf again. How bad that was, I'm not sure, but we haven't seen him again.
Das, just a question without notice. We're talking about these guys potentially coming in. Who's the 22nd man at the moment? Who's the most likely to miss out if there's a change? Because it would be hard to mess with their back 6, and you've got Goldsack there.
Probably last one in, last one out. I mean, Goldsack is the last one, I think, to come in, isn't he? I don't think there's been any other changes other than
What was the three injured guys came in for the qualifying finals?
Sire,
Goldsack,
how bad is his corky? He's probably not going to miss a prelim final with a corky, so you probably think he's going to hold his spot. Aish, maybe, but it depends what they need.
No changes unless there's an injury, but there'll be no changes to that pie side.
BT, you like to follow just intricate things that happen in the game, and you've been watching something Mason Cox is doing regularly.
Yeah, I have, Das, and it's just you get down to this stage of the year, and it's the little things that matter, and teams start to put it together. And I know Mason Cox has been on the mark every time there's been a set shot goal, particularly from a long way out, but anywhere. Have a look at this. The last couple of weeks, he is on the mark. He's actually gone very close, and he's actually forced a couple of kicks off the side of the boot as well by being on the mark. And look at that, the very last one there, that was early in the game the other night. Obviously, GWS had known that Mason Cox was going to be manning the market all the time, and Jeremy Cameron had in his mind, I'm going to get him to elevate in the air, leave the ground, and then I'm going to dip in under him and around him. So just an interesting little piece of vision there. He did it well too, Cox.
It's what Ruckman should do, and he does. He does it really well. He gets there quickly, and that's work rate.
A lot of people talk about doing it, but it actually doesn't happen in the pressure situation. They've done it.
Who are you all tipping in this prelim?
Yeah,
Tigers and the Pies.
Yeah, Tigers for me. I think their pressure will be too much. 25 points I've gone with.
Yeah, I've gone with the Tigers, 15 points in a close game.
Yeah, well, Tigers for me as well. I think they'll get it done, but it'll be tight.
Yeah, your tip there is you haven't actually picked a margin. You just sort of said...
We all give specific numbers,
under 12 points.
Under 12 points.
Well, can you pick a number just for...
So you're all wizards. You know exactly where it's going to end.
No, but the point of tipping is that you tip a result.
Well, the point of working out who's going to win and how much by is that none of you know.
So BT doesn't believe in tipping.
Let's just say it's going to be a close game. It'll be under 12 points. And if you guys are tipping, you're not fair income.
OK, we're going to move into our next preliminary final. Melbourne going across to the west and taking on the Eagles. Can't wait to speak to Nathan Jones, by the way, coming up shortly. But before that, Duck, let's just talk about a couple of decisions that happened in the Demons' win over the Hawks, and you weren't too happy about them.
Oh, look, I thought these two decisions were absolutely disgraceful. And
you're fired up about this.
Well, this could have cost Melbourne the game. Hawthorn were coming here, and I mean that one there, Brayshaw. He is going for the footy. He's low. Same with that one, Jordan Lewis, he's going for the footy. Now, he's already nearly on his knees there, Jordan Lewis. What players are becoming, Gunston's a perfect example, they're becoming very smart. They know now when the player's there, he's over the footy, they run in and they make the player hit them, make contact below the knees.
So let's clear them up first and then we'll speak more generally about the rules. So the first one, Brayshaw, I think the umpires today have come out of that. I've spoken with a couple that have come out and said, yeah, that was probably a high contact. Brayshaw
so they got that wrong.
The free kick. Probably got that one wrong. But the next one, they will stand by and say...
Yeah, the Lewis was the correct decision.
Well, I tell you what. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't the correct decision because this rule came in for players sliding on the ground with their knees into the lower leg.
They're not interpreting it the way
they're not interpreting. If a player... head hits someone below the knees and they're not sliding in, they're just going for the footy. If that's a free kick, if they don't change this rule now or interpret it differently, and a preliminary final gets...
So it's important. So momentum in the slide across the ground, as distinct from being there on the ground and the runner comes at you.
That's why it came in.
I agree with you, Duck. I think it was the biggest overreaction rule change. It was for one incident that we saw a bad break for Gary Rowan.
Do not have a game decided for that, for a player putting his head over the footy and going. That's what they're taught to do.
Sam, it's been the worst rule change we've had in a number of years. It confuses players.
We've had some bad ones.
It can change it now.
You want to change it now, do you?
You can change it now. Well, Stephen Hocking came out during the week and tells us that, we might be lengthening the goal square and doing this and doing that.
Well, that's next year, though.
Yeah, that's next year. But why not come out this week and say, guess what? This will no longer be a free kick below the knees. Well, players will stop running in and trying to be hit low, and players can still go at the footy like they were taught to do from the age of 5.
They'd then be criticised, Duck, though, for rules on the run and changing things mid-year in between weeks.
I hope the game's not decided because of that.
This gets back to the middle of the whole argument. That is, leave the rules alone because you can see that.
So you're happy with that?
No, I'm saying they should never have changed it.
Okay, but for right now, you're happy for a game to be decided because of that?
No, I'm not.
I think we should...
So change it.
I think the people in the middle, the unfortunate people, are the umpires, because they're just simply doing their job as they've been instructed to do.
But they're interpreting it wrong
which
as well.
Which is why...
But they're split-second decisions, BT.
Well, take the grey out of it. They're saying they got one of those right and one of those wrong. That's why it's so hard to umpire. Take that out, because it wasn't a free kick.
Umpires don't get everything right, mate. Well, you're going to tell me you do.
I'll tell you what I have got right, and that is get that rule changed, because no one likes it. Current players hate it. Everyone hates it.
Yep, OK, made a very strong point there, Duck. We're talking about Melbourne taking on the West Coast Eagles, and there are two players that loom very large, Darling and Kennedy, the two gun forwards. They've played 10 times together and haven't lost in any of those games. How big a factor is that, Brownie, in this contest?
Oh, that's a great stat, isn't it? That'd give the West Coast Eagles a lot of confidence going into this week. Kenny was a little bit rusty a fortnight ago when they played, but as the game went on, you could see he just started to time his leads and his marks a little bit better. So, he is going to be a massive factor.
And I've seen them play without those two players a little bit this year, Das, and you're just not playing the West Coast Eagles. When those two are out, their whole system has to change as a result, the way they go forward.
The smaller medium forwards become Cripps and Rioli and Ryan, and those guys need to kick the goals.
Impossible to judge them when those two aren't in the side. That's how important.
I'll tell you what it does do, and if you're a Melbourne supporter, it puts a lot of pressure now on Oscar McDonald and also Frost. Those two now have incredible jobs, and to be honest, Oscar McDonald's done some really good jobs this year, as has Frost, and Frost has an ability because of his speed. He can get across and influence and help teammates out, but they have to be better. They had moments last week where they weren't as strong as what they have been in contests.
And they're not intercept markers, they're one-on-one players, aren't they? Well,
they're more one-on-one players.
Yeah.
Frost can get across and influence, as I said, because of his speed. He does get across and help, but the pressure on these two guys, and you see this one here, Frost, I mean, that's show and makers, not even a regular. Pushed him under the ball. You see there, both got a little bit confused. This one here just got under the footy a little bit again. Another one there, Frost, under the footy. You do that against Darling or Josh Kennedy, and that is a mark, and that is go back, and that is a goal. So a lot of pressure on those two young men.
I think what those two players have done well is they've been given a particular task and a very confined task, and they've carried that out to the absolute nth degree, and they've done that well. I think what can happen with players like that, once they start to feel comfortable, they start to stretch their wings a little bit wider, they need to stay focused on their role.
But the good thing about all that bit of vision is their positioning was really good. Yes, they might have run under the footy or lost the contest, but the positioning where they had to be was good. So they just need to change a tiny little bit in the air.
Don't get me wrong, they've been good. They have been good. That's a couple of examples from one game.
Let's have a look at the tips. You all went for the Tigers in the first game. Mixed here. So Eagles for both Duke and Brownie, and the Demons for Duck and BT. BT also tipping this game to be under 12 points.
That's right. Somewhere under 12.
Somewhere under 12.
Oh, boy. I honestly think Melbourne's... I'm not looking at what Melbourne's done in the last 2 weeks. I'm looking at what Melbourne's done in the last 5 or 6 weeks, and their body of work has been unbelievable. I think they're in the form of their year, and I think they'll take that over there and they'll just get the job done.
We're going to go straight to Tommy Brown, who's standing by with all the latest news. Over to you, Tom.
Thanks, Darcy. Those margins a bit like trade talk, sort of educated guesses in some instances. I'll start with Mitch McGovern tonight. I think Carlton's still likely to get Mitch, but I think it's a little bit interesting that he hasn't nominated Carlton as his club of choice yet. I think Hawthorn could be circling, so just keep an eye on that. Moving on to Stephen May, there was some talk last week that the AFL could reclassify him based on amending the contract as a free agent or restricted free agent. Look, I spoke to one prominent club tonight. They think that'd open the system up to rorting if clubs could just redraft contracts to reclassify free agents. I don't think that'll be happening. Picking up on that discussion concerning Darcy Moore, the problem, as I understand it, with playing Darcy is Collingwood still don't know what's causing these hamstring issues. Their plan, providing he stays, is to conduct some biometric investigation over the summer, look at his back angle, his running distance and the like. So the obvious risk going into a prelim is they don't know what's causing these issues. And just on that vision we showed earlier, that hamstring injury, I think, was in the opening play with Buddy Franklin against the Swans. So, as we've touched on earlier, it's a massive risk given the fact that, A, the hamstring is OK, but B, They don't actually know what's causing these hamstring issues, so that's obviously a massive concern. In a boost for next year's draw tonight, I understand, particularly Thursday and Friday nights, I understand players will agree to 5-day breaks. Now, there'll be conditions, one per team not coming back from Perth, for example. The Players Association want to make sure it doesn't impact on player welfare, but the AFL's working to finalise the fixture by the end of October. I think they've got in-principle support at the moment from the Players Association for at least some strategic 5-day breaks to improve those Thursday and Friday nights. And just finally, GWS have got some pretty well documented salary cap problems. Lob or Shield will have to go, one or the other. They had Mad Monday today. We'll get a more clear picture when they have exit interviews on Wednesday or Thursday. That'll become a big story. Plenty of clubs chasing Dylan Shield in particular. Lob obviously linked to Fremantle as well, Das.
Thank you, Tommy.
That is a staggering story, that last one, because they're both contracted players. So I'd love to hear what the Giants have to say about that, if
why
that's correct. Well, I assume that they're both seen as gettable by other clubs and they're both probably earning good coin, which they deserve.
Need to take a break. Sam, joining the conversation at Talking Footy and on the 7 AFL Facebook page.
Up next on Talking Footy, Demons captain Nathan Jones is in the house ahead of their trip to the Wild West. It was a mad Monday for the Hawks, but an even madder Friday night. And Al Clarkson has a few big decisions to make. Plus, has Carlton made a major blue? And are the Saints buying damaged goods?
Hey, BT, stick around, because I got a feeling that tonight's gonna be a good night.
This is Talking Footy.
To the man on the mark, long ball, it's a goal. Will this see Melbourne into the finals? They've made it. They're in September and they've done it in spectacular fashion. McDonald knew it was going to bounce, truck the ball. Neil Bullen to 48, it'll bounce, it's another goal. 11-13. But Melbourne, huge winners over one of the highly fancy teams. Clark are able to get rid of one, wriggling loose, gives it onto the old campaigner Jones, gets the first of the last.
Melbourne have beaten Geelong in the elimination final, on their way to the semi.
Melcham at ground level, left footer around the corner. What about that from Melcham? What about that? Gee, God, boy, wow!
And they're on their way to Perth.
Welcome back to Talking Footy. Feels like to me all the neutral supporters are behind the Demons and the fairy tale that's unfolding in 2018. Nathan Jones has become a very good friend of ours on Talking Footy and he joins us again tonight. Bit rough, BT, calling your old campaigner.
Yeah, I've got a bone to pick with you.
No, you're old.
Every week I listen to my tape and that continues to bob up, so I'm not happy with it.
Let's set it straight. How old are you?
30.
And is that nearly the oldest in the team?
Oh, no, Jordan Lewis, 32, 3.
Yeah.
I'm still hanging on.
Not happy at all with BT. Tell us about the excitement. Your fans have been incredible. You've played in 2 90,000-plus finals. Can you believe that that's unfolding as we speak?
Oh, they've been amazing. It's sort of hard to, I guess, summate what it's all been about, really. But I think, as you said, 2 90,000-plus crowds. It's sort of something I dreamed of maybe 4 or 5 years ago, to see it rolling with this sort of momentum. But good on them, really. They deserve it. They deserve all the success after such a bleak period in the club's history, and it's amazing to see them, right in behind us.
Jones, you've made it not just in football but in life when you've had a mural of yourself in Hosier Lane. That's unbelievable. Ben Simmons, all the big stars. Did you go down and check it out?
No, I didn't, actually. I haven't been down. Yeah, look, it's amazing. It was obviously quite humbling, but... yeah, it's something I'll probably look back on and be pretty proud. Street artist Johnny D. I hit him up on Instagram and said thanks for that. And, yeah, look, he's done a terrific job there. So.
Duck's upset they haven't made one of you yet.
No, I tell you, you must have practiced that pose a couple of times. Absolutely perfect.
Hey, the two things I've noticed is the enjoyment factor that you're letting come through. You're not trying to contain that and suffocate it, and the modesty in which the whole group has gone about winning and being moderately successful so far this year.
Yeah, I think that's sort of been on the build. You know, we've been working through those challenges. I think with a young group, you know, it's you've got to be conscious of, you know, those potential flags, but you know, we've got a group of players that are confident and believe in what we're trying to do, and you know, we've got, you know, we speak a lot about higher purpose, and you know, obviously we're there to win games of footy, win finals, hopefully win premierships, but we want to bring joy and happiness and excitement to, you know, our family, our friends, supporters, and you know. I guess create reason for people to come and watch us play and enjoy being a part of it.
Have you taken a little bit of that from Richmond, given they've been quite outspoken in how happy and sort of play little gags before games, and all the other teams seem to be doing it as well.
It's a great trend in the game, don't you?
I think
I love
it's fantastic because, you know, not all that long ago you had to be walking around and you see here Hawthorn cracking a joke before the game, and you know, it wasn't all that long ago, as I said, that you know, you had to, if you didn't have a steely face and look like you were really serious, you know, it was sort of frowned upon.
Yeah, I think, you know, my experiences early days was pretty similar to that, but I reckon the shift has been in probably the last 4 or 5 years, and you know, that's definitely Goody's taken that to a whole new level. Just, you know, how you sort of shape your culture. Obviously, you build, you know, standards and behaviours that are non-negotiable, but at the same time, you want to build an environment that's enjoyable and fun, and people can thrive and be the people they want to be and are, to get the best out of them. And I think that's, you know, what we're seeing. Clubs are really adopting that and, you know, putting more resources into that to you know, build the right sort of environment to, you know, help players grow and obviously flourish.
Well, it's fun winning finals.
Yeah, it is, mate.
Yeah, the number one scorers in the competition. You're also defending really well, but you seem to have this great ability to create chaos, to want the game almost to be chaos with a bomb down the middle like this from Frosty, or whether it's a kick in from the wings that goes inside the corridor and you actually turn it over. You seem to back yourselves to win it back with this chaos-style footy. Yeah,
I think, you know, obviously it's no it's no secret that, you know, the strength for us is around the footy and around the contest. You know, we've always been pretty strong, particularly even under Roosie before Goody came in. We started to progress in that offensive area. We were always a high-scoring team. I think the biggest adjustment has been our buy-in to defence. And obviously the defence creates, if we defend well, creates more opportunities for us to get the game back into a contest. And, you know, once we've sort of embraced those 3 phases of the game, rather than sort of being good at one or good at a couple, but good across all 3, I think we've seen you know, a real spike in our form, and that's a credit to the playing group and obviously the coaches in you know, pushing and driving that, and the improvement's been over probably the last, you know, 6-8 weeks.
Would have been chaos if Frosty's ball came off the side of the boot. I reckon Goody would have been real happy. I don't know whether you heard me before talk about the pressure that will be on Frost and Oscar McDonald this week. 2 really big jobs for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think we're under no illusions going over there. Josh Kennedy didn't play last time we beat them, you know, only a month ago, and Jack Darling got knocked out, I think, early in the game. So, you know, they're huge ins for them, particularly if they play full game time and those kind of things. So those boys will have their work cut out from an individual point of view. But I think if we look at it collectively, the challenge is going to come down to, you know, pressure through the midfield, pressure from our forwards to not allow lace-out kicks and allow, you know, their guys up the field time and space to make easy decisions and put the ball where they like, which then makes it a lot more difficult for those backs. But, you know, it'll be a team defence theory heading into the game, and that's probably one of the big challenges, other than probably the midfield battle.
Have you been amazed at Jack Viney's impact? I know the first final he led the way with 11 tackles. He'd missed a fair bit of footy and then comes out and gets best on ground on the weekend. I mean, in your wildest dreams, you couldn't have thought he would have had the impact having missed so much footy in these 2 weeks.
It's funny, you know, I thought the commentary around that was surprising, really. You know, we probably 8 weeks ago now, you know, we sat back and said, let's, you know, cool the jets, give him some time to recover, and we'll set him up to perform. And if we get there, he's going to be obviously a major in for us, and he's proven that. Almost a mini pre-season over probably a 5 or 6 week period to, we allow him enough time to get his foot right rather than sort of rush him back as maybe we saw in previous times, and that's allowed him to come on in leaps and bounds. And the work he put in, obviously these days it's so highly monitored with sports science and the like. As far as a body of work, he completed enough training to come out and perform at the level that he has, and it's no surprise.
He has performed unbelievably well, though, Nathan, at the same time. Sam McClure is standing by with a lot of questions coming through on social media, Sam.
Yep, and they've been flooding in, Nathan. So we'll start on Twitter. Nick wants to ask, how do you block out the overbearing sound of the Eagles fans at Optus Stadium? And do you think it at all impacts on the umpiring? We've heard from Alan Richardson during the year, call it the noise of affirmation, I think, Jonesy?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I wouldn't have thought so. I would have liked to think the umpires were impartial. But, yeah, look, it's our experience over there only a month ago. It's a pretty amazing stadium. It really is like a cauldron in there. The noise is like no other ground, I don't think, in the competition. So, yeah, look, particularly they came late at us in the last game we played there, and the noise was surreal, really, and but we handled that pretty well, and we expect to do the same this weekend.
And Daniel on Instagram's got a left field one for you, a non-football one. Where do you get all your tattoos done, and what's your favourite?
I haven't had any for a while. It's hard to pick out my favourite, but it's a good friend of mine, Simon Moody, does them out of his house over in Richmond.
Right.
So they're homemaders.
Oh, sort of, yeah.
Yeah, Jonesy, BT has been looking forward to this.
No, I haven't.
Hand the reins over.
This is just a little word association, Jonesy. I say the word, you give a one-word answer. Okay. We really can't have any more than that. One word. Chaos.
The Demons.
263.
Games played.
Well done. One of Tim Steins' record. Surfing.
Yeah, my favourite pastime.
Petrarca.
Like a puppy dog.
MCG.
Our home.
Brownlow.
Maxi Gorn.
Steins.
Legend.
Finals tickets.
Oh. Buy them.
And
come.
1964.
Our last premiership.
2006.
2006, the year I debuted.
Yes, well done. Brayshaw.
Gun.
Gorn.
Gun.
Hogan.
Star.
Jeddah.
Underrated star.
Next year.
Get on board.
Paul Roos.
The Messiah.
Fashion.
Me.
Over celebrating.
I like it.
Hey, Jones, is it true that you've committed to getting a tattoo of Max Gorn if you win the flag?
Well, I'm not worried about it. That's for sure. I've got a little bit of room on the backside, so that's where it'll go if we do make it.
Hey, just one for me before you butt in. Petrarca. It seems to me that something happened a few weeks ago, and there's no doubt in my mind that he is playing a more selfless game by a long way than he ever has. He's almost been the leader in that. In fact, he almost gives it away when he shouldn't now.
Yeah, I think he's just a young player trying to make his way, and he's obviously got super talent, but he also puts great expectation on himself, and we saw on the weekend what he did after there was some critics around his performance in week 1. He just went away and simplified his game, and when he puts himself in the right positions to be involved in the contest, we sort of talk about being on the contest line, and it gives him multiple opportunities to impact. And when he's around the footy, he impacts because he's got terrific skill at ground level. He competes in the air, and he's super powerful. You mentioned before 2 big crowds, Friday night footy. You go over there and play a Saturday afternoon game. Boy over here tells me it's going to be 24-25. Brownie's been looking ahead. Is that a concern at all? Is that spoken about, or that's just preparation? Put more fluid in? Yeah, it's just preparation, I would have thought. We get to sort of acclimatise a little bit getting over there on Friday. We'll have a run around at Optus. But I think last time we played there only a month ago, it's sort of 10, 12, 13 degrees in Melbourne. It was 22, 23 degrees over there. So it's nothing we haven't experienced recently, and it won't be any factor in the game.
24 degrees, Duck. It's not like it's 44.
Jones, you started off by giving praise to your fans and got a great initiative. I know you're behind. Demon fans who can't make it to Perth, get down to Fed Square to watch the game on the big screen. 7 will be crossing live throughout the coverage, and we're working on a TV back into the rooms, beaming the Melbourne fans back into your rooms, Jonesy, so you get a sense of the enormous support you have. Great idea. The 23rd man, Melbourne fans, get to Fed Square if you can't make it to Perth. Good initiative.
Oh, amazing, mate. As I said earlier, they've been unbelievable, really. I've said it a couple of times now, but the feeling that we've had over the last couple at the MCG, it's almost been like an interstate game, but at our home ground. We've dominated the crowd, and it's been noticeable amongst the playing group. We absolutely love the support, and they deserve it. And I'm bloody happy for them as much as I am for the team and the club.
Thanks again for your time tonight. Good luck.
Thank you. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Nathan Jones, the captain of the Melbourne Football Club, in brilliant form. Overrated, underrated is up next with a Swan turned Saint, Dale Thomas, and the Black Eyed Peas on the agenda. Plus, what's next for the Hawks? You're watching Talking Footy.
We're talking footy.
Yes, welcome back to Talking Footy. Before we get into overrated, underrated, some news that has just come through in the last couple of minutes. I think Tommy Brown broke this story about a month ago on 7 News. The Western Bulldogs have confirmed that Jack Redpath has, in fact, decided to retire. So he's still some years left on his contract, but Tommy Brown was all over that one. So that's a little bit of sad news for the Bulldogs.
Much
and
loved
Jack Redpath.
player, Jack Redpath. Unbelievably well respected down there.
Yes.
To cope with multiple knee injuries, so we wish him all the best.
We absolutely do. Let's get into a man who's moving clubs from the Swans to the Saints, and it kicks off overrated, underrated with Dan Hanbury, boys.
So what's the question?
Is he overrated or underrated? It's the same as what we've been doing every week, BT.
Well, you didn't ask the question.
I'm going to jump in. The version that is a multiple All-Australian, hard-running aerobic freak, underrated, and St Kilda have got a great deal. The one that I saw play the last 2 rounds, who looks broken and sore and hobbling around a little bit, that version.
You got to pick one.
Overrated. Well, which version do you like?
Well, you've got to pick one.
I like the first version.
So do I, and I think we'll see the best of Dan Hanbury when he comes down to Melbourne and goes to his new club. He's been injured for a while.
I always judge people on the body of work and not on a year.
I agree with the 3 gentlemen.
Underrated, agree as well. Let's get into our second one of overrated, underrated, and that is Tom Mitchell's Brownlow hopes. $1.60 favourite he is with the bookies. His Brownlow hopes, are they overrated or underrated? Anyone think he can...
He just wins, so...
they're underrated, yeah. He wins.
Right.
I can't see anyone knocking him off.
Tom Mitchell wins.
Overrated for me.
A little bit too short?
Way too short.
No, I think you're onto something.
I think it's wide open this year. So
who would be your number 2?
You wouldn't be taking $1.60. I think you could throw a blanket over a group of players.
Including one of Nathan Jones' teammates in Max Gawn. The decision to re-sign Dale Thomas at Carlton, overrated or underrated? The veteran heads into his 14th year.
Good decision. They need experience, Carlton.
Okay.
He deserves his spot on the list, Dale Thomas. Very happy for him.
Yeah, he's fought back well. A couple of years ago he got dropped and his career looked over, and he's finding some really good footy across half-back.
Had a good year. Go again.
Running on top of the ground and seems to have that spring back in his step.
Yep, had a good year at half-back. And the final one, the grand final entertainment, the Black Eyed Peas. BT, you'd probably be the biggest Black Eyed Peas fan here.
Well, just having a look at them here, they're without Fergie, I think, this particular event, because Fergie hasn't been there for a while, from my information. Was it 10, 12 years? How long is it?
She sort of went off and did her own thing.
Gone off and done it. So it's half of the Black Eyed Peas.
It's 4 of them. So
well, it's overrated. I mean...
You don't like them?
Who are they?
I think that's been highly disrespectful to Apple Diap, Taboo and Will.i.am, because they're more than just Fergie. This is the Black Eyed Peas we're talking about, and they are elite.
Yeah, no Fergie, no Black Eyed Peas for me. Sam.
Yeah, underrated.
Brownie's clearly done his research on the Black Eyed Peas.
I like the Black Eyed Peas.
What's your favourite song?
Black Eyed Peas
Favourite song?
I got a feeling it just changed. It changed music.
Don't know any of their songs, but they're underrated.
Music.
You like I Got a Feeling there.
Yeah.
How does it go?
Tonight's gonna be a good night.
You answered all the questions.
Is a new low for our show. Talking footy, it is time for the Gillette Pro Glide Defensive Player of the Day, brought to you by Gillette with flexible technology for your closest shave. And this week it goes to star Melbourne defender Michael Hibbert for this desperate chase. He has become a super important player. Stop Jack Gunston kicking a goal and help the D's book their spot in Saturday's prelim final. He's going to play a massive role in the West. come Saturday afternoon.
Very good. Good news with the footy as well, Darson. Since he's come back into that back half, they've looked a lot more settled. There's no doubt about it.
He's had to make up a couple of metres there, didn't he?
Yep.
And he did.
I want to move on to a quick chat about the Hawks, Brownie, your old team. How did you see their season? Made the top four, but out in straight sets.
Yeah, I thought at the start of this year they'd sneak into the 8 at the very, very best, and they'd be competing against Essendon and Port Adelaide and those sides. Well, they bettered everyone's predictions because they finished top 4. They had a great run into September. Couldn't quite get the job done, but when you look at that young side... I didn't expect too much come finals time because Connor Nash, the Irishman, Warple, Morrison, a lot of guys playing their first finals and very inexperienced.
Very, very favourable draw this year. They won a lot of close games, so I think they'll get a tougher draw next year, and you'll see where Hawthorn are really at next year if they get the draw that they should get.
It's a good year for the Hawks, wasn't it?
You know
I think they
Clarko,
overachieved.
You know Clarko better than all of us. What do you think he'd be most disappointed about just from the weekend? What didn't they do?
I think they were in both finals, really, and they just didn't take their chances. A couple of their really senior, experienced guys like Burgoyne and Bruce that have performed on the big stage so often, so well, just didn't quite play as well as he would have liked, and he definitely felt that Melbourne game was winnable had they taken their opportunities.
Done very well to hang in there and not go all the way to the bottom, I reckon, and hang thereabouts. I thought he coached well. You've been a big supporter of his this year. They've done well. They've done well with the side.
Jago O'Meara was a big out in that final. I thought that was a bit of the outside run and the polish and the inside ball-winning ability as well. So, big tick for me for the Hawks. We're going to take a break now. Up next, why the Sandful cannot be serious, which star giant was the biggest letdown on Saturday night, and our fake news segment is back. And also, don't forget Footy's funniest show, The Front Bar, is back on Thursday night this week at 8:30.
Serious, man. You cannot be serious.
You can't be serious. The Sandful, which stands for the South Australian National Football League, which in itself is an interesting thing that the South Australians went with back in the day. Acronym is the word I'm after. Have this story from the prelim final. North Adelaide taking on Woodville West Torrens. The Eagles, Woodville West Torrens, up by 47 points. Now, it turns out that there were 19 men on the field for a considerable amount of time. The Eagles, coached by Josh Carr, former Port Adelaide Premiership player, they kicked enough of a score while they had 19 men on the ground to make a difference. They storm home, win the prelim final. There currently is a hearing underway, Sam, that's been going for over 2 hours. No resolution as to whether or not the game's going to be replayed, whether or not North lose the match, whether it's just a fine. Unbelievable story.
So there was no line-up. It was discovered after the game.
Correct. It was discovered by footage that emerged, I think, on ABC after the game, that the 19th man was on for 4 minutes and 8 seconds. And we thought we'd have a decision this afternoon, Das, from the Sandful Commission, but they've handed it over to an independent tribunal who, as Das mentioned, has been sitting for the last couple of hours.
Did the captain ask for a head count?
He didn't.
No. And they kicked 1 goal 2 in that time, but they did come back from 47-odd points behind. So
doesn't the captain have to ask for a head count?
That's what I thought. So they lose your whole score.
Those rules are a little archaic, though, aren't they? Given the technology that we have now.
Probably should change, but given that they're the rules, they probably...
Agreed.
So what do you think the outcome? A fine and...
Oh, look, it's unfair. It's unfair. You'd probably like it to be overturned, but unfortunately the ruals are there for a reason, and he did not. The captain didn't ask for a head count.
The team that lost were on the Terps for Mad Monday, so they're going to be no good.
The final margin was 5 points, and they scored 7 points while there were 19 men. So I would.
There's an argument for it.
I would take it off them.
You would actually cancel the result and give it to North Adelaide?
Yep, form of cheating.
Wow.
It's a form of cheating if you've got 19 men running around out there and you're kicking scores and you win by 5 points.
Might have been an accident.
Yeah, but you've got to be better.
That should be
better stewards on the interchange bench.
That should be the result.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, but how the rules are written,
I know.
Agreed.
Duck, we want to talk. You want to talk about Jeremy Cameron, who kicked 45 goals for the season. How did you think he performed in the final?
Yeah, look, in the final on the weekend, I really like Jeremy Cameron. I think he can really play, and he had a good year, and then obviously got the 5 weeks for the high hit. But the way he played on the weekend, he doesn't play like a centre-half forward, BT. He ran under the footy a lot. He doesn't want that ball down the line. He doesn't hit the packs, so he doesn't influence the contest in a physical manner at times. At times he does, but in other games he doesn't. Ran under the footy, as I said, a lot in this particular game. And, I mean, for a player that is getting over $1 million a year, I would think that when the ball, it's a slow play and there's only one place that ball's going to go, and that's down the line, he has to be that player that puts his body on the line, gets in front and competes for that footy. And I did not see that once on the weekend, which is really disappointing, given that it was a final.
Do you think he spooked from that suspension where it was a horrible injury?
That's completely different circumstance. I'm talking about the fact that he's... At times in that position, you've got to take a battering. You're not always there.
It's like he wants to
take the pretty foot, get the one out the back or lead up to it.
It's like he wants to play as a half-forward flanker and not take the responsibility of being the main man in the team at centre half-forward. I want to see him be the main man.
Heavily back-ended contract means he's in the top couple of players as far as wages in the competition next year.
And that comes with it a fair expectation. Sam, right now it is time for this.
Fake news. It's all fake news. I can just fake news.
I'm going to go after one of our very own because James Brayshaw had this to say earlier in the year.
If you or your club is going to offer Jared Pollack $700,000 a year...
That is the greatest lot of garbage
Let
of
me
all
finish.
time.
$700,000 a year for 5 years.
Incorrect.
5 years.
That's what it is. It's incorrect.
But they are kidding themselves,
No,
if that is
not,
true.
But it isn't true, so they're not kidding themselves.
That's $3.5 million.
Bill,
5 years,
it
too
is
long.
Incorrect. He's staying anyway.
Jim, if you're the former president of a footy club, I would have thought you'd still have some contacts at that footy club that would give you some privy information that some of us might not have. He's just signed a 5-year deal going to North Melbourne for over $700,000. So you were peddling fake news.
Wow,
that's tough.
Nice. Is Jared Pollack Brownie saying that he's going to North Melbourne not for the money also?
He did say that on radio on the weekend. It's not about the money.
He'll be a lot happier with that sort of deal, I would have thought.
Don't go anywhere. The Blowtorch fires up next, and Brownie tells me he's got a very funny edition of Say That Again next. This is Talking Footy.
We're talking footy.
Yes, welcome back to Talking Footy. Sam McClure has put his hand up for the Blowtorch.
Thank you, Das. There are 3 certainties in life: death, taxes and money-hungry airlines jacking up prices in September. Now, we all did basic economics at school. Maybe not Brownie, but we understand the simple laws of supply and demand. Higher demand means higher prices. We get it. But come on, airlines, $1,600 from Melbourne to Perth? It's less to fly to Europe, and as one punter kindly pointed out today, it is cheaper to fly from Melbourne to Singapore and then to Perth than it is to fly direct. Sure, add a little bit of cream on top, a bit like BT and Duck do for their September speaking engagements, but a 400% price hike is unfair on footy fans who've waited a generation to see their side back in a prelim. It's ridiculous. Well, not happy about it.
Well said.
Yeah,
I agree.
What is your sort of price hike like for your September?
Was that business class flights or?
Would you know anything else?
Over to you, Brownie.
Now it's time for...
Out strength there. Is that a word? Strength?
Richo had some problems with the Toinkos.
The Duck, I'm not sure the Bunn family will be overly happy with their newest family member.
If you're coming tomorrow night, rug up because it's going to be wet and very, very cold.
Weather report. Are you giving weather forecasts now?
Wayne Bunn.
Richo, if something happens at the same time, it's simultaneous.
Sort of simultaneously at the same time there.
Say that again. Scoop, that's called tautology as well. Saying the same thing twice in a different way.
Well done for writing it down.
I had to. Toby Green, kids, well, they'll just believe anything you tell them.
Thank you.
No worries. I'll see you next week. Good week, mate. See you then.
Say that again. Didn't that come back to bite him on the backside? Das, I loved your elongated commentary on the weekend.
Here comes to going!
Say that again.
A little bit carried away there, Brownie.
Rightfully so. It was a great grab. And Jack Crisp, he just needs to understand that there's a pecking order at footy clubs. Have a look at him here. Bucks is talking to the star, De Goey. Chris has got his hand out, wants a handshake. Nah, now we need to get to Goldsack because he's got the big job on Jeremy Cameron. Just stay there, keep yourself hanging. Now we'll get to you. You just got to know exactly where you're at, Scoop.
Where were you at in the sort of pecking order when it came to handshakes at Hawthorn?
Right down the bottom.
Nothing worse than being left hanging, though, is it? It's an awful feeling when you're out there. Hey, the Talking Footy podcast this week features Chris Newman, who also happens to be the coach of the Box Hill Hawks, and he's sitting down with Brad Sewell. You'll be at the VFL Grand Final, Brad.
Massive game. Yeah, looking forward to it. Casey and Box Hill.
Thanks to all our team. We'll catch you next Monday night. In fact, next Wednesday night at a special time. We'll be back here again on the desk talking footy.